It's
I don't know.
amazing.
I don't know about that. That's messing with me.
Well, my mother reminded me the other day, oh, you're having Thanksgiving dinner with us, aren't you? And that would be the
Ah,
first time in 25 years.
that's
So,
amazing, dude. I'm
yeah.
so glad you get to be with your people down there. And this is John Pope down in Bradenton, Florida, by the way.
Yes, nice to be here.
And Neil is stepping in for Victoria, I believe. We may have Victoria pop in when she gets home and settled, but I think she's going to just take a break. So we got Mr. Neil Robinson coming out behind the
Yeah.
curtains to say hello to us, man. How are you?
I'm fantastic. How are you guys?
Good, good, good.
Yeah,
This
we're
is where
doing
we
well.
get
Thank
insights
you.
from a panel of therapists in your home or personal time in your car, knowing it's not delivery of therapy services in any way. We have the three questions that we're going to be talking about here in episode 332. This will
Yeah.
be a fun show.
Yeah.
Elderly
Yeah.
dating. I was waiting for somebody to like step in there and say the title of the show,
No,
y'all.
no. Well, I'm going to just say that I don't. If it were to happen to me at this time, it would be nearly 45 years since I.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I hadn't dated. I don't know what that's like.
I'll tell
So
you, we got some personal experience on this show today with Neil. I think you seem to indicate you're comfortable talking about stuff, so that's cool. And then John just did, and I want to make it very clear about something before we even get going. Neil, wipe that smile off your face, man. I'm going to make it very perfectly clear that Chris Gazdick is not involved in elderly dating. Okay. I'd like to think I'm moving into whatever stage of midlife dating. Okay, so let's get that out of the get that out
Hey, it
there.
depends who you find. You might be involved in early dating, depending how your standards are.
I knew I was walking into some serious stuff on that, Neil. Thanks for that. Listen, the three questions. What does dating mean to you now in this stage of life? Companionship, romance, new beginnings. Secondly, how do you feel about online apps based dating as an older adult or as a partner of someone dating later in life? And then thirdly, what boundaries or safeguards? We definitely want to revisit the safeguards things for darn
so
sure.
you need guardrails.
Well, guardrails, but meaning safeguards, I think more so in the way of romance fraud, John, as
Okay.
well.
All right.
Yeah. And so what boundaries or safeguards do you currently use or wish you had when pursuing new relationships? So we've tried to provide you some information to disseminate information about mental health and substance abuse, blow up stereotypes and myth. That's our drive. That's our deal. Your job, if you get a little bit of entertainment for us and you feel so compelled, we ask you really to subscribe. Makes a big difference. Truly, click the little bell. All those little things. How many stars, John? You got to say it because that's your job.
5 stars, 5 stars, and maybe make a couple of comments because if the more 5 stars we get, the more we're visible. And
Like
so,
the video, get the
video, yeah,
notifications
live
going.
video, yeah,
A-
YouTube, and yeah,
And honestly, when you have a show that you're listening to on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and whatever, you can click the share button and you share that with somebody that this will apply to. I really feel like you're doing them a favor, and you're also helping out the show. But they're more likely to check it out and kind of get turned on to a topic that's really important. And I mean, this one, for instance, you might have an elderly person that's kind of engaged in this. They have wherewithal to be on apps and things. They can listen to this show. So click the little link that that
hmm
that shares it, and you can text the actual link that way, and you can really help people.
hmm
So contact it through a therapisteyes.com. We do the YouTube lives about 6:15, 6:30 when we get fired up. Interact with us. It's fun. Guys, this is the human emotional experience, which we do endeavor to figure out together. So yeah, elderly dating. Sometimes I have a show that I like to kind of take the pulse of our little
This
group
is
and
not
see.
this is not elder hostel, right?
This is not
Mhm.
a hostel. Why would you say
It's
that?
not
Poor
hostility.
elder hostility. No, no
Hostility.
hostilities.
Uh-huh.
What I thought you were saying is elder hostel, like a
That's
hotel.
what I
And you,
was. I was.
okay, you were. Yeah, that word trips me out, man. Have you ever seen the movie Hostel?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a horrible movie. Yes.
It's
Bloody.
it's terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. I just don't think I can ever stay in a hospital.
Yeah.
I'm a naive American that's just scared of that, man. I that movie was terrifying, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, I like to take the pulse of our panel a little bit with certain episodes and stuff from time to time. I think this is one. What are you guys thinking about this show, man? I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. I do. I think it's going to be fun. I think, because it's a season of life that I'm in right now. And um, it's, and it caused and jump started my brain. I don't know what I would do without my wife. I
Yeah.
would probably, I would be heartbroken. I would be grieving. I would be vulnerable. And, and you can be certain that the people that on social media would send stuff to you and they would find out that information. And, as, and if you're in a
Overwhelming.
vulnerable state, overwhelming, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I mean, after 28 years of marriage, John, I can identify that. I don't know how much difference, the post-marriage thing is after a time period like that versus, 48, or
Yeah.
40,
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm
that's
43, right? Years marriage. And,
yeah, it's
yeah,
a long time.
yeah, it's a long time. Yeah,
Shock to
definitely.
your system. And then when you spend, 3, 4, 5 years single and you kind of get back into like, oh God, what do I got to do? At this stage of life as an older person,
Mhm.
getting in, playing the field, like what? It's
I,
such a,
I get a toupee and
Wait,
get a
you
hair
gonna get Botox
transplant,
somewhere, John?
Botox, yeah, somewhere, yeah. The-
But I think the important part to think about
I
to this.
almost spit my soda out on that one, John.
well, that's where my mind went. So that,
That's awesome.
yeah,
Sorry, Neil, my soda spitting cut you off there.
Here I'm trying to be serious, and here you guys are messing around. This is the roles have changed. I'm always the one messing around, but no,
Indeed.
I think the interesting part too about the dynamics is like even if say John had been married for 20 some odd years, the fact that he's still a lot older than you in a different stage of his life, that changes the whole dynamic. I've
yeah,
been married for it'll be 22 years this year, but even still now, I know you were married for 28, Chris. You said that's like I'm still a little bit younger still, so there's a difference in the stage of my life I am when that relationship ends and I have to start new.
Right.
uh-huh,
John looking at it, if his relationship ends, that changes because he's further along than you are. I'm trying to like now say like
yeah.
John's not I don't know actually John, your
You mean
parents are still
I'm
around. You
ready to
guys
meet Jesus, huh?
yeah, exactly. So it's
But
just
Yeah,
the changes, right? Chris,
yeah,
you have this and you expect a lot longer to live, right? Just because of the age difference, right? So it changes your purpose about your dating, right? What is the goal of it? What are you trying to do? There's the recovery aspect of losing that previous relationship, if that's where it came from, to now I'm not just wallowing for 5 years because I'm, 85 years old and I'll probably not make it longer. I'm 50 something and I still got, 20 to 30 years. I need to do something with my life with a purpose, right? There's something,
yeah.
it's a difference in the dynamics of not just the long-term relationship you got out of, but how much more time do you think you really have, right?
it's
Changes
a
the whole
big
game.
difference. If
Yeah.
you expect to live 10 more years or 5 to 10 more years, it's kind of like, dude, if I'm 85 years old, I am not going into the dating field. I am just
Uh-huh.
chilling and listening with my family. If I've got 40 years, as I kind of guess I'm in 30 to 40 years, like I absolutely don't want to live life alone in that regard. I mean, I could, I have a little bit now. So, it's not, but I mean, if you've got 50 years to go or even 60 as a 20, 30-year-old, that is a very different circumstance.
Well, let me see. And I'm going to put a little caveat on this because I'm thinking that we've had where the woman had predeceased the husband, and they'd been married. The wife predeceased the husband, and then you hear these stories of the men just suddenly getting married. Like within a year or half a year, even
Mm,
to somebody, and I've seen that, and there's been I haven't seen anything recent in terms of studies about it, but that men don't do as well without a.
You you've said that before, and I've been kind of thinking about that in the back of my head a little bit, John. Honestly,
Uh,
I
well, you
yeah,
remembered that. That was a few years. That was a couple of years ago. I think.
I well, was it that long ago? Yeah,
I don't know.
I
Yeah.
don't think it was that long ago, but whatever, it made me really sort of ponder all of that as I'm living my life, in the back of my head. Like that's not like yeah, I don't know. I don't want to make a value judgment on that, but I remember my brother was like that actually. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
he after his divorce, man, he was getting together with his now wife, but 6 months after. I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, I don't even remember it was that quick, but I guess it was. So I think you have to have some caution with all of that.
Yeah.
Is my view.
You can't generalize it.
Right. That's fair. I have to be careful with
Mhm.
that.
Well, no, I was on my part. I was. Mine was anecdotal. Churches
Right.
I served, and
It's what you've seen in
yeah.
men. Yeah, it'd be interesting to get some data on that, some serious data
Mhm.
to kind of know. It's a curious question. But let's back up a little bit. What are we talking about when we talk about elderly?
Mhm.
Okay, I mean, all jokes aside, I'm wondering what you know what level of life we're talking about here, and I think it's
Mhm.
important to clarify a little bit. We're definitely talking about somebody that's 80 years old.
Mhm.
Okay. We're definitely not talking about somebody that's my age, 52, right? Like, no,
Mhm.
that's not elderly dating. I mean, is 60 elderly dating? Is the retirement age 65? Like, what about in your 70s? Do you have to
Mhm.
be in your 70s to be elderly? Are you still midlife at 60? I think these are kind of important questions to
Right.
frame up the factors that we're going to talk about.
Well, at my age, 72, I'm feeling still pretty young, despite some challenges.
That
But
gives me so much hope, John. Thank you.
yeah, yeah. And so I think it's attitude. I think it's um, you don't put yourself into a rut or into a box. Basically, you just
That's fair, but I think we have to have some parameters on it. I mean,
yeah.
to understand the
Uh,
stage, if some people might feel really old at 50.
uh,
I know we make jokes, but somebody can really feel old. I mean, they're clicking 60 and they're like, "Whoa." And I don't know that we need to,
well, you can,
you know,
yeah. And I see them, and I see people that I feel look older than I am, and they're 15 or 20 years um,
right.
younger than I am, and I'm going chronologically younger. But they're carrying around an oxygen. They're pulling an oxygen tank, and you got a
Yeah.
cigarette hanging. It's
That's a thing. Yeah, I mean, in counter to that, I'm proud to say I went on a big old hiking deal up at Chimney Rock. I think I was talking about it last week. Uh, I hope none of my new friends are talking about listening to this now or whatever. But guys, I was smoking them, dude. I was rolling up the hill or whatever. I'm
yeah,
like killing it, and I'm like,
yeah,
whoa, wait a minute, what's going on here with these guys and
yeah. I can
girls?
see you doing it, man. You're a
Yeah,
West Virginia guy.
it made me feel good.
Yeah.
It did. So,
Mountain
so
bred, born
yeah,
and
Mountain
bred.
Bay. I've said those hills will sing to my soul, and
Yeah.
they'll make you right. They
Uh-huh.
will make
They
you right.
will.
You know. All right. Well, so it should change priorities. We touched on that. I mean, I think that's maybe kind of obvious, but with a greater life experience and all, possibly you might be geared around like the freedoms that you have instead of being in a relationship. That might be a unique draw to you. But there's also, John, as you said, you're feeling differently. What kind of vulnerabilities do you have? Do you have your physical aches and pains? I mean, I've seen life pattern studies in probably based most on surveys and stuff, but people have said their marriage satisfaction we know goes down greatest when you have kids and then when you're empty nesting. It's like a major transition times, but I suspect that retirement is another time where your marriage satisfaction kind of goes pretty, takes a hit,
Mhm.
and you become just focused on self, little pains and aches and that type of thing. So, So this is a very changed picture and thus changed priorities, right?
Yeah, I'm wondering too, is this that because we're living longer? I'm looking if my family history is correct, I'm looking at towards making it to 100.
Yeah.
And so I'm foreshortened, I guess. I'm a lot closer to Jesus than you guys are, but at the same time, I have some time uh,
Mhm.
for and so men are living longer if they take care of themselves. And
Absolutely. Yeah, I quote my ex all the time now. She said it. I'll say it again. You find out at 50 how well you took care of yourself at 30. I've added, you find out at 70 how well you take care of yourself at 70. I like
uh
to say I screwed the first one up trying to get the second one right.
yeah,
But I think you also find out at 90 how
uh-huh,
well you took care of yourself at 70. I think that's a true statement.
uh-huh. I'd agree. I'd agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of mentality involved in this, but one thing I think we haven't mentioned yet, I don't know. I'm not there in life, but I gotta believe one of the highest priorities when you talk about what is this thing in elderly dating, I just gotta believe that companionship is one of the biggest factors,
Right.
the biggest longings.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Yeah.
I think one thing you think about when you get to those ages, a lot of times you have your retirements in place, you're pretty well set, you're just kind of coasting along, a lot of your stuff's paid for. I mean, when your priority isn't about financial security, it's not about procreation, it's not about those types of things. Are they a good parent? Are they gonna be a good parent? Or those like now, as you stated, you can be kind of selfish. Who is this person that I want to hang out with? That companionship thing, right? It changes the whole dynamic. You don't have to
Hmm.
look at it from anything else besides, do I click with this person and do I want to spend time with them? No pressure, no ulterior motives. It's just about what, and you do have to watch yourself, right? If you're well to do and someone comes in and trying to,
Hmm.
smooze you, that's a whole nother thing. But for the most part, if you're at that age, you've put your time in, everything's there. You're just trying to enjoy life, right? You want the person that you're with to experience things with you. It just changes the whole perspective of it, right? When you're younger, once again, it's lust, it's the attraction, it's then you think about financial security, building things out, and then the long term stuff. But then when you get to that age and you now have grandkids and great grandkids, and you're not really watching them, you want to just hang out, you want to travel. Who's your companion, right? You hit on
Travel.
it. It's about companionship. Your focus changes dramatically, right?
I hadn't thought about that with this issue, Neil, but you're really, as always, mostly perfectly on point. Like, you know, I don't know, John, that we would have many therapeutic issues with blended families in
Uh-huh.
elderly dating. Like,
Uh-huh.
that pretty much just takes that off the table, I would
Yeah.
think, basically. Is that
You're
fair?
not having to raise them now. You do have to deal with family members. Let's say the children sometimes are worried about inheritance and things of this sort, and so that has to be sorted out.
Well, that's true.
That's one of the things when I would marry older couples, we would talk about financial considerations to make
Oh,
sure that
wow.
no one feels like they're, but that's easily taken care of if you take care of it.
Is it,
Yeah.
though?
You
Well,
can do it. You can do a contract agreement, a trust or something, and you put that, just there's your stuff in writing. There you go, and then you do it with the rest of the stuff, right? You
just have
can make
a woman that I know did the wedding. Her husband just died, and they were deeply in love. It was a second marriage for both of them, um, and she actually was widowed twice, which is very, very tough, but and rough on her. But they were really upfront about money, and she was actually better with the money than he was, and he had more assets, but she was she sent off money to her family and children, but they got to or nieces and nephews, and it was they didn't have to worry about money. They didn't have to worry about arguing and who's being treated better, anything like that.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I just reacted to you, John, because I know, we know all money is a very emotional topic for sure, and I think struggles people. But it occurred to me just listening to you there. We're talking about elderly dating as a marriage proposal.
Uh-huh.
I can tell you a lot of my clients that I've worked with over the years, ain't no marriage proposal in the mix.
Yeah.
So, is this a time where you switch over and you have developed new identities, new worldviews, and
Yeah.
maybe a new beginning that, does it have to be
What do
marriage? Yeah.
what if you've been in a suffocating marriage for 40 or 50 years
Mm,
and your spouse was a real Ahab
tool.
and yeah,
Tool.
real tool, and male or female, and you just want to have a real relationship and not have to worry about obligations. And so part of it is you stayed in the marriage because of the children and the grandchildren, and um, this is now an opportunity to explore and to try on a new hat, a
Yeah,
new
and
lifestyle.
another angle of trying on a new hat and the identity too is I think that there's a reason why human beings have a construct in, I would venture to say, all of society,
Uh-huh.
you know, throughout the history of humankind, is because of the love, the attraction, the connection, the bond. I think that we're wired that way, and
Mhm.
staying active, being engaged it's absolutely good for your health, as well as, can we say, our mental health? I
Yeah,
think we can.
yeah. Our social health, our mental health, our spirituality, all of that. Um,
Right.
yeah. So,
Yeah. I think another thing to switch us into, exploring this idea of elderly dating. I don't think there's likely a way to do this in a healthy way if you're not, how do I want to say, I guess maybe proficient
mhm.
in grief work.
Right.
I don't think you're gonna have elderly dating and have a lot of leftover grief and loss from either your previous relationship, or deaths that occur if you're a widow or a widower, or life changes,
Uh-huh.
grieving into retirement. That if you haven't done that work, this probably isn't gonna go very well. I think I'm gonna make that
I
bold
agree
statement.
with. I think you're absolutely right. And you think about some cultures, traditional cultures have very definite ways. For example, in Jewish families, if they're observant, they'll cover the mirrors, and some people will. Back in the 19th century, or early 20th, they wore black and said, "I'm in a sign of mourning." And then a year later, or a year and a half later, they take off the black and they start. And so that was an external of an internal change, an external sign of an internal change. Do we do that in our culture,
No,
Western culture,
we
anymore?
do
I
not.
don't think so. Yeah.
Not at all. Yeah, as a matter of fact, I mean, the sad reality, and that's why I wanted to park out here just a little bit, John, is, I mean, I think you know as well as I do in our therapy work, oftentimes I find myself like like pointing us in the direction of that issue on purpose.
Uh-huh.
And oftentimes people are shocked at, like, "What do you mean I'm grieving retirement? I couldn't stand working. I love being retired. Why?" Well, you have a major loss there as much as you're happy with having chosen to stop working. That's a
Uh-huh.
loss. And so I'll
Yeah.
point us in that direction to kind of make sure, like, look, we need to tend to these emotional matters. And if you don't, I'll say it again. I think you'll have a hard time having a healthy relationship in
Uh-huh.
elderly dating if you don't.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Right.
I think, I'm kind of seeing that with my mother-in-law right now, that she, I know her histories and I know what she's going through. And I know right now we're dealing with some other stuff with like her sister right now, that, my wife's aunt. Like, I know that a lot of the stuff I think that's hitting her right now is because of undealt issues she had from her, the marriage she had that was 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Right? And
Mhm.
it's going to be really hard to get into the scene of dating if you still have a bunch of stuff that you're hanging on to, right? That's the biggest issue with like young versus old. Young, you're kind of setting some stuff up, figuring out who you are. when you're old, you know who you are, but then you got a lot of stuff you've gone through. If you don't address it, it's going to be hard to get into a new relationship because of those pieces, right?
Yeah, and I think we can demystify the age factor there too. I guess as you were talking, Neil, I was thinking, I made the point and I stand by it. But I mean, also, uh, I don't know. Can we say elderly folks have more that they have to grieve? I guess we can because the layering that we've talked about in shows, which by the way, if this appeals to you, we really want to refer you to some shows, episode 324. We just talked about
Yeah.
this not too long ago, the importance of grief work. And then we talked about in episode 322, grief sucks.
Yeah.
It's just, man, this stuff it's hard to do. And when you're divorcing at 30 years old, you still have to do that in order to have a
Yeah.
successful relationship moving forward.
Isn't it interesting that the DSM 5TR, I mean, they have not in the diagnostic statistical manual, whatever it's called, had not really dealt with grief. And
Very
yeah,
frustrating.
it is very frustrating. It's a transition in our lives that is can be complex, complicated, could be distorted, and the idea is that you are able to work through your grief so that you're able to be able to come through with a term in PTSD treatment is post-traumatic growth. There's something's lost, but something's gained, and something's gained is wisdom, hopefully, and a better appreciation for life and cherishing of it.
Yeah, it's super frustrating. I just checked in to make sure I wasn't wrong. I mean, I feel like, here's on my little desk book reference of what John was just talking about. We all have them close because we need to look at the numbers and look through diagnostics. I feel like we talked about somewhere, John, maybe it was a conference or just maybe a conversation like this, to be honest with you, about being able to diagnose grief. We can't do that we don't have a diagnosis out there. And I mean, even complicated bereavement. I feel like that is what was talked about, complicated bereavement. But
Right.
I don't think we have a code for that. I don't think we can diagnose that. Now, I'll go on the record with you. I think it's stupid.
I do too. I agree with you. Something is fundamentally life-changing, life-altering, and if you're having trouble going through that process of grief, it's going to affect you psychologically, spiritually, and emotionally, and physically. And all those things are going to happen.
And we need
And
to treat it.
it upends every relationship that you have. So
Sometimes dramatically.
yeah.
Absolutely. Another factor in exploring this elderly dating, I would put us towards these dating these dating apps.
Yeah.
These dating apps, man. I didn't
Which one-
realize this
Which
till
one
I
do
was
you like the best, Chris?
not even gonna answer that, brother, because you know the answer to that. That is nothing more than a provocative question. I am not gonna
Now
dignify
you've
the
piqued my
response.
interest. You've piqued my interest. What is it?
How about none? All right. The thing is
You're gonna swipe one way or the other.
I don't. Yeah, do the whole swiping thing. Up, swipe down means something. I don't know, brother. But I mean, I was surprised in doing this show prep for this. Like, the Pew Research evidently is showing 1 in 6 over the age of 50 are jumping into the online dating world,
Wow.
and that kind of surprised me a little bit. That's a lot. I mean, it's not exorbitant amount. I guess that means
Now,
5 out of
are they
6
talking
aren't.
over 50? They said over 50.
It says
Okay.
over 50, yeah.
So
Which
I'm thinking people 50, they're actually had the first introduction. They were like early 90s.
oh yeah, I graduated
Mid
high school in
90s.
91. I'm 52, yeah.
Yeah.
That is kind of surprising that it's that high for that age. Now I'd be intrigued to see how much that shifts when they get to like 60,
Right. That's what
right?
I was
What that
immediately
that
thinking.
next decade, right? Does that shift to 1 in 10? or does it shift to one in it? Like, what happens once they get to 10 years old? As John pointed out, 50 has that age that still has that technology stuff, right? They're still
My
aware.
mother is 90. My mother is 94, and Mom, don't get mad at me, but she's never turned on or turned off a computer.
Are you
She's not
serious?
My
serious.
wife's grandmother never used a debit card,
Uh-huh.
and she just passed like 2 or 3
My
years
mother
ago.
doesn't use a debit card, and
Yeah,
she doesn't trust them. So
it's kind of crazy. And so I think I am surprised it's 1 in 6, but then I also feel like as you get year you get over 50, I feel like that number is going to like get less and less just because of the way that it is. Now the sad part is that as someone that's age 50, it seems really strange to me that they don't want that. They wouldn't want to like do some sort of a physical connection or something to meet someone. But I also know in society it's more convenient just to try to line something up online and then you coordinate to get together, right? So I see
I
the
get,
reason.
if at my age, I can't imagine that. I mean, but I engage people every day, several times a day on virtually. But
Mhm.
I see them, I talk to them, I get to know them, and but it's an intentional listening, and maybe it's a lot of work. I don't know. What do you think, guys?
Go ahead if you have a response, Neil, because I was checking out some numbers. I'm not
But
sure.
I think the biggest thing from you, John, is like people are coming to you with what you're doing in your world. Like imagine having to just go somewhere and try to strike up a conversation without the preconceived thing of they come to talk to you, right?
Mhm.
Just go to like say like Chris, for example. If he's going to Hickory Tavern, that's different to go
Right.
talk to someone there versus someone coming to his office or something like that. Or with the
Yeah,
idea now, instead of just casual conversation, because you have no stake in the game, John, that's
yeah.
different than Chris, who maybe has a lot of stake because, hey, that person's
I
kind of.
think we got to get Chris into speed dating. You know.
This is about elderly dating. This isn't about me. Come on.
You got to practice for your elderly dating. You're getting closer, Chris.
Killing me, guys. You're killing me.
Yeah.
I knew I was
I can't get
stepping
I
into it
can't
with
get
this
out of the
episode,
seat.
y'all.
I can't
This
get
is
out of
not
the chair.
golly. I'm not gonna let them see me squirm anybody. I was checking out the numbers, honestly. Looking at the article, the Pew Research deal, they're citing really because you would think the numbers would go down when people get older, but I don't know. All in all, 3 in 10 Americans have used online dating. I would have thought that to be a little higher than 3 in 10. And then it says with the over 50, 1 in 6. It doesn't break it down beyond that and older. But you know what? I think there
That's
might
even with
be,
COVID, right? I mean, we live
well,
in the era. Yeah.
there's COVID factors, but I think there's also like my clients that are older are falling way deep into Facebook, especially.
Uh-huh.
Like Facebook has a dating thing on there, and I
Uh-huh.
just find that there's a lot of that going on. I mean, with older people are falling into the Facebook world, so I can believe those numbers being that
Yeah.
high.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the other part too. I think because I was just looking at a survey here that it says 14% of adults in their 60s, 12% of those in their 70s, which is crazy. Um, I'm just trying to look at these numbers really fast because I found a quick little survey. But I think you're 100% correct, right? And they brought this up in the thing. People who are 50 might use Tinder, where people who are 60 might use Match, or in your
Right.
case, they use Facebook, right? Because they connected to it to talk to their kids and their grandkids. And now you have all these elderly
So
people who are on Facebook.
it's a convention, but in other words, it's a tool. It's in other words, it's familiar.
Right. It's not going downloading a new app, Plenty of Fish, or Our
Yeah,
Time or
it
something like
did.
that, and it's started with new. Facebook is a thing where you're used to being on that thing and you're just kind of talking to people and you get these connections. It's like going to your local library or bar. It's like you just know and you start connecting. So I honestly, if there wasn't Facebook with those older people, they probably would be on more dating apps. So actually, I think the numbers are
Well,
skewed just
I
because
gotta
of something like Facebook or LinkedIn or whatever.
What's that, John?
No, I was just thinking, there was a man whose wife, had a severe stroke. She had been on birth control pills, and they were a lot more powerful back in the day and in the
Birth
60s.
control pills?
Yes, they were, and you could cause blood clots and strokes. And so she was very, very disabled as a result of that. And he looked like he could be, even in his late 70s, he looked like he could be a GQ model. And he said, I'm having so much problems. And his wife was still alive at the time, but she was starting to fail of the women that are trying to date me. And I saw it, that was in Sarasota, and that was 20 some years ago. And he said, I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in that. And he felt like he was getting pressured. And
That's an interesting element too, to go back before we go forward to our next segment. How much pressure might you feel?
uh-huh,
Culture plays a big role in that, John, and I'm
uh-huh,
I'm I'm puzzled, curious about, how does culture, whether it be, we're in Charlotte, North Carolina, area, the Southern Bible Belt culture versus the New York or the West cultures out in California or other
uh-huh.
cultures around the world. I wonder what kind of pressure
I
people
got
might
Florida
feel.
man culture.
You go, what?
Florida man culture.
I mean, it's a
Yeah.
thing. It's different down there, brother. You know that. It is very different. So, is there a
Want to
pressure
walk my
cooker?
alligator. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think, my stepdad, for instance, he doesn't feel any pressure. Of course, mom's, in memory care, but he's alone, and he needs companionship. That's a primary issue. Back to that, but yeah, pressure. Culture. I don't know where that is, possibly.
Yeah.
Do people feel that? Do people not? Type in YouTube livers, right? Like, tell us if you're elderly. Like, I'm really curious about that. Do you feel
Yeah.
pressure?
Well, it's seasoned or mature. If you're
Mm,
mature or seasoned.
mhm.
Oh, well.
Well, we like to think that way, John, too. Well, I have so much more experience. I am seasoned. I'm not immature. I'm not taking that away, but I think there's also some myths there, man. I feel like insecurities are insecurities. And
Yeah.
one of the things I've definitely found,
No argument.
through anecdotal experience of 25, 30 years doing this with people in intimate, close therapy relationships, man, I don't know. When somebody gets their heart broken, they're 15 years old. I don't know that's any different at 40 or 70. You get your heart broke, your heart's broke, and you have insecurities and
Or
fears.
the
You have
question
fears at
is,
all ages.
do you have the resiliency?
You may, but you may not. There's some pretty resilient 15-year-old daters out there, you
Uh-huh.
know? And there's a whole lot of people that have so much seasoned life experience, and man, they crumble. They
Uh-huh.
struggle
Right.
hard
They're fragile.
at seasoned ages.
Well, and some things they may have some reoccurring. I'm looking in terms of a spiral, and let's say they have some traumatic event that happens to them at a very young age, or they feel abandoned, or whatever, and then the person that's been your life mate for 40 or 50 years dies, and they haven't abandoned you, but that doesn't tell the body that it doesn't feel like that.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
The
And so
body
you might
locks
be
in those
replaying
feelings.
that. You might go right back into that old horrible, that feeling like being a motherless child or abandoned.
In
So,
fact, John, and we can throw the engulfment side in there as well. If you haven't done your homework, if you haven't worked through those things, I would actually go a step further than that, John, and say you're likely to
yeah,
experience
I'd
that
agree.
struggle.
I'd agree.
You know, I mean, it goes back to what we're saying with grief work.
Mhm.
Um, so let's do a quick little segment. I don't spend a lot of time here, in fact, hardly any, because we did a whole show. You talk about dating apps. You know what we got to talk about next, Neil. We got to touch base on the fact that fraud is a real nasty.
Oh,
Also,
God.
it's a big
There's,
issue,
there's
isn't it?
no place lower in hell than that. So, for a person that does that.
You say that with such a sweet voice, John.
Yeah.
It is. It's
Yeah.
terrible. It does something. Something kind of bothers me, man, when I have clients that are in dealing with the fraud, and a lot of the fraud wraps around like they think they're talking to somebody famous, and I mean I've had this a lot lately. I really
Yeah.
have.
Same here.
So
Well,
we did a whole show with that, Neil, and then I'll let you roll. Episode 311, mental health and fraud with Kyle King. That's why I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, because we really hit that deep and hard with episode 311 and how people get killed with $1 billion or $3 billion with a B dollar industry on this thing, man. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, as I've seen, recently with some of the stuff, seeing some of the behaviors, some of the stuff that's interesting is you get a lot of these older people, and it's funny. So I'm dealing with this one more personal side where I'm dealing with an elderly person with this situation, and I've seen what's going on with those pieces. Then I also noticed that there's this golfer. Her name is Paige Spiranak. I don't know if you've heard of her or anything, but
Yes.
she's supposedly a really good golfer, but she's also
She's very attractive.
she flaunts her assets when she does her golfing, right?
Yeah.
Well, here's
Okay.
the interesting thing. She posted
And the
other
emphasis
day-
on the ass. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, John, there you go, buddy. I'm proud of you on that one.
There you go. Yeah. But
So-
she posted on X, formerly Twitter, that she doesn't have a Telegram account.
Uh-huh.
And she did that because there legitimately are people who are pretending to be her. And in the
Oh.
comments, I could not
Right.
tell 100%. Some people I could tell were being funny, but some people were like, what do you mean? I thought we were gonna meet, blah blah blah. And like I don't know, from the comments, like legitimately people were thinking they were talking to her, because there's things like Telegram and WhatsApp where people are using things like X or Facebook to build pages. And with AI is creating videos and pictures of these celebrities. They're creating these pages. There's elderly people who don't know what's going on. Well, they like or comment on these posts. Well, then someone comes in saying, hey, I'm so-and-so, private message me, or, oh, hit me on this WhatsApp app. And then it takes it off of Facebook. And then you have this infatuation because these people think they're talking to that celebrity, or they're talking
And they could sound like them too, right? I mean, with the AI.
They can do all sorts of stuff with the
Gonna get worse.
deep fakes, and it's in the
Yeah.
Sora now and all these other things, right? But it's that process of these people are getting involved, hooked into one situation, and then they have that little bit of hope, right? That little glimpse of this famous person's talking to me,
It's exciting. The
It
limbic
is.
system lights up. And I tell you, I'm listening to you, Neil, and the thing that we need to kind of comment about is understand we're making an assumption here. So far, for whatever it's been, 30, 40 minutes, we've made an assumption. It isn't true. We've made an assumption and talked about it as though everyone is single in elderly dating. And that's not the case at all. That is not the case. There are many situations I've come across where people are still married, long-term relationship, but they got this new thing going on. It's exciting, it's fun, and I guess you could put it in a category of affairs, but it has a very different vibe and feel to it, to where people start chatting and talking and connecting.
It's like an
sometimes
emotional affair.
fraudulently, but yeah, go ahead.
Is it I was going to ask you, is it an emotional affair in that sense?
I mean, you could, yeah. I mean, you definitely use that language. I would have no problem with that. I'm sure you wouldn't either.
Yeah.
I mean, there's certainly an emotional engagement there. While you're married, so it opens up that Pandora's box too. With
Well, I
the
mean,
fraud.
the thing too is if you're in a marriage and you're not addressing that communication issues, right? You become emotionally detached, right? Same thing. That's new, that's exciting, that's all of these things. Like you said, it kicks off those parts of your brain. And so I feel like, and that's almost, to me, and that's the hardest part about watching people get scammed online. It's not the fact that they're going to get to the point where they're going to lose money. It's the emotional turmoil of watching them, someone you care about, get excited about someone because they finally feel like they're getting the attention they want, knowing
And they're
that
about to get
person-
crushed.
And then how do you handle that as someone outside of that? How do you help them get past that? Because you got to rip the band out and be like, look, this is what's really going on. But yet you don't want to hurt your loved one because they're finally happy, right?
Yeah.
And that's a struggle.
And then the struggle
they're
comes
happy,
in.
but I mean, are they really happy, or is it the feeling of happiness when in reality it's superficial on some level?
They
you
feel
said that.
valued, right? That
Yeah.
change, whether they're in a
Or they
marriage
feel
or,
attractive, or they feel beautiful again.
Right.
Um,
They're fascinated because this person that they're infatuated with thinks that infatuates them, right? And that's going back to the same thing. Elderly dating could be someone because once again they are in a loveless marriage
uh-huh.
and or physicalless marriage or whatever emotionalist whatever it is, right? They're
Mhm.
lacking something. And so sometimes if it's death or early divorce, they don't
Mhm.
have content for a while. Or if they are in a marriage for a long time, there is that reality that there's something that might be missing because the other person's not putting their part in the relationship, right? And so that is hard because, and I feel like there are certain people, and I think this has changed now, but I feel like before 20 years ago, there were a lot of, I think, elderly people that were married just because of the sanctity or the commitment that, hey, I need to stay married, but then they would still go date or sleep
A
around
lot
or
of
something
that.
like that because they still wanted to stay married because they're like, well, we don't believe in divorce, but it's like even still financially, it's better just not get divorced.
God
But
doesn't like divorce because,
Well,
but
there's a lot of
I'll sleep
religious and
with my
cultural aspects there.
my
and
squeeze.
financial.
Yeah.
If I divorce this my wife, I'm gonna lose half my stuff. So I'll let her go play around or something, right?
Well, and Neil,
And
you're talking about, what do you do as an outside person observing this? I mean, again, I would argue two things. One, you get your heart crushed, and getting your heart crushed sucks. It's
Mm.
hard.
Oh,
As
it
a matter
sure
of fact,
does.
I have the belief that that is the point in time when you lose your primary relationship that people decompensate the most. Meaning, I don't care if you're 17 years old and you're losing your first girlfriend, or if you're widowed after 48 years of marriage, John. That is a crushing feeling. And the other thing that I thought about, Neil, as you were talking, how do you help your loved one who's caught into this
Hmm.
romantic relationship, elderly dating that's fraudulent? And you try to tell them, "Hey, mom, listen, this is fake. This is not real." Well,
Hmm.
now she goes deep into a nosedive into shame,
A
right?
question too is a role reversal. Sometimes it's the children that's doing this, and so the older the mother or the father feel like they're being dismissed and treated like an adolescent again
Yeah,
or a kid,
and then
belittling.
dismissed,
and then I
belittled.
and then I think the part that they also miss out on because I think there is something magical about as someone who goes through loss and grief when they find someone and they now have a connection. Honestly, if the child is in a healthy state dealing with whatever that happened too, because if it's a loss like a death, the child has to deal with that too. Now, divorce might be different. I don't know. My parents divorced when I was relatively young. I'm like, whatever, you go do your things. But once again, for the most part, if a parent finds someone that makes them feel loved and they are happy about it, the children should be happy for them.
Hmm.
And the part that sometimes when they get into these relationships, if the parent, like you said, John, I think that there's a role reversal. If the child sees a concern and they bring it to the parent because they want them happy, but they also don't want them to be taken advantage of, the parent really gets to that point where they feel like, well, you just don't want me happy, right? They don't like the parent because you're going against it. They think that the child's jealous or they can't move on or blah blah blah. But really, what it boils down to a lot of times is the child cares about the parent. They see a risk that the parent's not seeing, and then it becomes instead of actually listening to them, they become defensive. I've
Hmm.
said it before. I feel like sometimes as people get older, in certain things, if they don't address things, they regress. They go back to instead of being an adult, they're acting like a 16-year-old who's living on the oxytocin from the excitement. It's that whole behavior. And so they goes back to John, like you said, they don't as the parent, they don't
Do
want to be
you
told,
think in
they don't
terms
want
of
to be
like,
parented.
let's say there's a child and the parent and they've had a good relationship with their father or their mother who's and their own one of their parents dies and the parent starts dating a new person and the person is seems to be a good fit with the the spouse or the older person or the parent, and then the child might find himself or herself feeling a little jealous that they might not have their that their relationship might be at risk a little bit.
But
Is
that
that
There's a
means
an
lot of
issue?
layers to this.
Yeah.
and that means the child has to work on something, right? Because that's the
Probably.
reality, right? The child has to overcome their situations because of, if you can't be happy for someone who's happy and finding the things that you don't have, you have to address yourself, right? But once again, when you look at it, do you see the problem with what they're doing because you're jealous, or do you see the problem because it's an actual risk, right? What are you looking at this from? In our perspective, we're seeing a huge risk in some of the situations we're dealing with someone right now. We're trying to figure out how to process that with them. How do you talk to them? How do you go with those situations? Because I want them to be happy. I would love for them to find someone that they can feel
Good question, Neil, and this is about your loved one. Is that loved one have had patterns like this in the past, that maybe not with this person, that the person has an infatuation with or an obsession with, but in other things? Has there been some sort of like relationship instability in the past?
I don't know. I know that they were married for a long time. They've been divorced about as long now as it is, and I don't know the previous relationships. And I feel like they're being regressed for a long time, and I think they're finally getting some of their emotions out and some of the previous feelings. I think they're, like I said, to me, they're regressing back to a 16-year-old because they're almost starting over because they've had issues they haven't dealt with in a long time. Like there's a lot of baggage in this situation that we're going through. So
You're right, and I love the memorable expression of address it or regress with it. I mean, that's address or regress. That is absolutely true. And I'll tell you, you just put me
But you don't do it under duress.
address or regress, but don't do it under duress. Oh man, we are smithing it up. No, Neil, you put me in touch with something really very much. I mean, my mom is in memory care, so she's definitely not going to be dating, although they kind of date in there too. As a matter of fact,
I do
a lot. But no, man, I tell you what, if some fella's coming up on my mom and she's 75 years old and you're going to go ahead and kind of do something with her, I am blowing up. I'm like, who are you? What is you doing? What is your motivation? This is my mom, And so there's a heavy protection from people around that person that, boy, I felt that when you said that, Neil. I was like, whoa, wait a minute. If that's my mom, I'm very protective of that. So I think that's an element as well, which leads to another element. Can you talk about this? So we're blending in, like, how do you suggest, how do you traverse these things? I really feel like there's a great hesitancy from elderly folks. John, I'd like you to confirm this a little bit or not. Like, they don't want to talk about this. They keep this secret. These are my children. I don't want them to know what I'm doing. I want my independence. I don't want to be told what to do. I can't talk about this.
I don't want to be judged, and I don't want to be shamed, and I don't want to be belittled. And
isolating.
There's also the parent-child dynamic. You don't want your child to know that about you as a parent, that you are human, that you want relationships.
Oh, Neil, that is so key. I think so too. You want to appear as perfect as you can, and that's a temptation. Yeah.
But I think that as the child, sometimes once you get to a certain point, once again, as the dynamic grows and you go from the child who needs the parent to now an adult, that relationship should shift from parent-child to really more of a friend relationship, and that you should be talking to them as an adult to adult, because it's at that point, and it becomes to me, it's a bigger deal to be friends with your parents at an older age than before, because that means it becomes a choice. You're still friends with them. You care about them as much as they should care about you, and you want that. And that's what they have to understand, is this conversation, it's all natural. Like the idea of like the Asians where the parents move in with the family, right? When they get older, it's just a matter of fact. When, the person we're dealing with, I've had conversation with her that I probably don't want to have, because I'm having a serious conversation with her, trying to understand this, trying to get to the root of this to try to help what's going on, right? But
Neil, she's probably afraid to talk to you about it. She's probably defensive in trying to get there,
But I'm the only one she'll talk to right now, outside of the people they're talking to right now. That's the thing, because I I'm the safest. I don't freak out. I don't get mad. I just try to listen. I try to rationalize. I try to do these things with her, and I'm just trying to treat her like
But that's your natural state, isn't it, Neil?
Yeah.
Don't you feel like that your personality is something that's non-threatening?
He might be a
Yeah.
good therapist, John. What do you say? We should recruit the
I
guy.
think he'd be an excellent therapist.
Let me get into time. I'm aware of time a little bit. So I wanted to say, you know what, the book that I wrote, you know, Through a Therapist's Eyes, Re-Understanding Your Marriage and Becoming Your Best as a Spouse, has a lot to do with dating. And you know, I want to, like, for instance, chapter 27, acceptance of your spouse begins with acceptance of self.
Mhm.
That is a phrase that came to my mind that I wrote about, because again, I don't think, if you don't do the grief work, if you don't prepare yourself, if you don't go into this new thing in a stable sort of way, accepting the realities in your life, accepting your spouse, can't happen if you don't accept yourself and all that comes in with it. And then there's also chapter 24, boundaries are important markers between others and us. And you think about, like, the limbic system's blowing up. I'm excited about this. I'm no longer alone. I've got a companion. I can stay active and do. It's exciting, but boundaries are really important, because
Mhm.
if you go into this, you know, through through I need this to be okay, you're in trouble. You have to
Mhm.
have the strength of, I'm okay if not. Therefore, you can really enjoy. Like, I'm be fine to meet somebody and start dating them now. But if it doesn't happen, that's okay. I'm not in a rush.
Are
You
you
can't
sure you're
go
kind
at
of
this,
whiny?
huh?
Are you sure you're kind of whiny about being alone a
Yeah.
lot lately? It's
I
kind of
take that back, what I said about you, Neil. That's
Where did that come from? Yeah, again, I
a
started
little
to show
hostile,
you,
are
Mr.
we?
Robinson. You didn't hear me when I said what I said at the front end. We're going to start this whole show over again, and you're going to have to listen to that line. All
But
right, anyway.
I think that's something we've talked about. You have to be comfortable with yourself and know what's going on, right? I know my dad's on his third marriage, and what he did before his current marriage that he's on now, he was basically told he has to fix himself or
Yep,
get to where he's the best person for whoever he's going to meet. Acceptance of
yep.
yourself, so you can move forward, right? I wholeheartedly agree. Like right now, that thing with you, it's like, great if you work on yourself, that person, if it's meant to be, or you find that person, you're going to be in a lot better position because you don't have your baggage, you don't have your stuff. You're not going into a relationship trying to carry all this extra baggage with you, or trying to make the relationship fill a gap that you never addressed. So I think you're 100%. If you accept yourself, your next relationship, whatever that ends up being, however you end up meeting, it's going to be so much better, so much more full.
The best thing that ever happened to me was to have my heart broken and left literally at a church up in West Virginia. Sorry about that, Chris.
Best state in the union.
Best state in the union, but way up in the mountains. And she decided to instead go to Boston instead of staying with me and being married. And it broke my heart. And it took me about 2 or 3 years to really process through all of that. But looking back now, that breakup helped me with my relationship with my wife, and it actually,
Set it
I
up.
think, pardon?
It set it up.
Set it up. Yeah, because I know I needed to change. I needed to not be as insecure. I needed to be. I wanted to be a lot more. I wanted to be more assertive and not become what that person wanted me to be, but become the person that God intended me to be, and the best person for my soon-to-be wife that I married. And
Quick YouTube comment that I want to address. I hear you. Is YouTube comment is would be good show for ladies mixed in. So I tell you, we're gonna give Victoria grief, because you absolutely make the perfect point. That's true. We need Victoria here today.
yeah,
This is
I know,
three guys
Well,
talking.
it would have been Victoria, but you know,
Not our fault, right? It's
it's
not our
not our
fault,
fault.
John.
She's got this kid that
This darn kid, yes.
Oh, you mean that's just women's work, That's
Oh boy,
raising kids.
you stepped
No,
you
no.
stepped into it there.
Yeah, I did. But I mean, right. But she couldn't be here. I think she would add so much to it, you know?
Just going
But
back to what you were saying, Neil, I want to step in and say, yeah, like, listen, one of the reasons why I feel like the divorce rate is so high in the first place anyway is because, man, I know it's coming from a therapist, but I feel passionate about this. When you go through stuff like this, you have got to address it so you don't regress with it. You're just doomed. I mean, if you go into this with all these layers of things and try to think that you're going to make sense, I mean, upside down is where you'll be because you'll have all of that other stuff kind of in there. So please, please, please. I mean, if you're dating in the elderly, style right now, realize, this therapy thing isn't for youngsters. I have all kinds of ages in therapy. We need to address those things. If you don't, you just repeat them over and over and over again, Neil. You
you
know,
have to have some semblance of self-awareness
and
and
resilience, yeah,
and
develop.
resilience, to be able to do it because therapy is hard work.
It
And
is.
it's great work. It's rewarding work. It's be all you can be like Army, but it's the but it challenges you
It'll
and
stretch
it's
you.
yeah.
It'll stretch you if you're doing it well anyway. You
Mhm.
know. Are there any other kind of practical suggestions we had? I think that a lot of the practicality, you think of the fraud stuff, and I know Neil, you were talking about dealing with a lot of that. Like, I feel like you want to go in and do your dating thing, accepting yourself, like chapter 27, and looking at boundaries and making decisions and really being aware of what your purpose is. But I mean, it isn't just about avoiding fraud and protecting your older folks and your family from getting took. It's a lot of emotional dynamics kind of go in here.
You want your family, you want your parent to be happy. You want your parent to have joy in life, not just a transitory happy, which is happiness is transitory, but to have great joy in life, a fullness, a richness of life
Yeah.
that they can see life as a tapestry. Um, it's robust.
So let's move into our segment after closing comments or thoughts, if either of you have, of what we call the shrink wrap up. Do you guys have closing comments and thoughts though?
One thing I would say about when it comes to, because I'm trying to think of, when I'm looking at your notes, I'm trying to figure out some things. Like one of the things to think about that I think is really important for someone who's an elderly person who's dating. Don't isolate and do this by yourself either. I mean, we've talked about isolation, such a big problem for a lot of things. But like I said, when you look at the scammer, you look at the fraud, you look at everything, just like in any other relationship. The more you isolate, the more you see things only through your lens. If you try to keep it secret, don't tell your friends, don't tell your family, don't tell your children, right? You're gonna have the risk of not getting that
And
counsel from those
that's a
around.
good flag, Neil. That's a good flag because if you're feeling embarrassed and you don't want to talk about it, that's a
Or if
good
the person tells you, don't talk about it.
that is yeah.
It's a
So
problem.
It's
It's a
a
So that's
problem.
what
It's
I
problem.
would
not
say. When
good.
it comes to, if you're an elderly person and you're dating, don't be ashamed to date. Like if your children have issues with it, then find friends, right? You should have someone you should be talking. You should be sharing the joy about it and letting them kind of help you through this part, right? Because
Right.
that's the biggest thing I would say. Because once again, we are relational people. We should be happy when someone finds a relationship that actually fulfills them. And once again, from an outside perspective, don't be afraid if someone says, "Hey, I don't think this person you're dating is good for you." Even if it's a real person, not even scam, right? You need to be willing to listen to people and let people see it. Go on double dates and go see the
Be a
interactions.
celebration.
Right. Don't isolate and try to hide this from those that are around you because you think you know best because you're 75 years old and you lived your life. No, you
I'm
don't
glad
know
you said that,
everything.
Neil. That's huge.
Yeah, because I would hazard that a lot of people that get scammed by these
They're
Lotharios
isolated.
are yeah, they're isolated, and it's not that they're in cognitive decline or delusional, though some are, and be aware of that. But most people are just human beings that are lonely. They want to have They want to have a relationship. They want to be loved. They want to love. And so it's not just the age, you know.
Mhm.
Good, couldn't agree more. Yeah. Listen, this is where we do the shrink wrap up, and what we do is we kind of do a little friendly competition, see who kind of summarizes the show and gauges what we were talking about, kind of final thoughts, pulling it together. Um, I guess, John, we have a head to head with you and I, or we should. I don't know if we want to maybe give Neil a shot at it, and one of
I
us
think
judge.
Neil should take the shot, and
You want-
I'll decide.
oh, you want to do? You want to do? All right, Neil, you want to go, brother? What do you think? You got this?
Yeah, let's go.
All right, man. You want to do rock, paper, scissors, goods first, or what?
You
know what? I'll let you.
Okay.
I'll let you think for a little bit. We'll give him the advantage, John. We'll let him ease into his very first shrink wrap up. All right, here we go. Listen, elderly dating is something that's real. Elderly dating that happens in people's lives. I think just like most new things, we really want to highlight, being prepared. And being prepared is being thorough with your emotional process. You might have a lot more layers of things if you haven't been dealing with them through life, and that's okay. But we want to address before we regress and repeat things that are unhealthy in our lives. This is a time that's golden years. It's a beautiful experience. It is a time to celebrate and talk about, not hide what it is that you're doing. Elderly dating can be a blast. And I want us to be able to do that in a way that is in healthy, entrenched methods of attaching, you know? So have fun, man. If you're elderly out there and you're feeling lonely, there's all kinds of people at the senior center or in your public area. Go connect. It's a beautiful thing. Just do it safely, wisely, and thoroughly with your mental health.
And if you're single, reach out to contact@throughatherapisteyes.com. Chris is open, so just so you know.
He is going down
be his
the
client.
cliff. He's
You can't
lost
be his
it.
patient or client.
He is not going to win, John. I will veto if you give him this win. All right, stop. Go, Neil.
So, and I think it is important to note with this, elderly dating is key. Once again, we are relational. We want relationships. We shouldn't be isolated. We shouldn't be alone. I think the most important part when it comes to this is find systems and places you feel comfortable with, you feel safe with, and go enjoy your life. Like I said, online dating is one way to do it, but just go live your life and go interact with people and just go talk to them and open those doors with those pieces. Because one, if you meet them in person and you're going to places you need to, you're less likely going to be scammed or frauded from an online. And there's so many things to be careful of. So with that point, going through everything we have, enjoy your life, be careful, celebrate with friends, don't be alone so that you're not isolated, just like anything else. And just as I'm going to say, because we've said it many times, work on yourself while you don't have someone so you're better for them when you meet someone. So those are the things I would say key, get those things, get yourself good, find your spaces, go where you need to go, and just find people that you enjoy life with. Doesn't have to be serious. I think, Chris, you said it best. Just because you're dating doesn't mean you have to go for marriage.
So, all right. You know what? That's the shrink wrap up. Mr. John Pope is the judge today. Who's going to nab the win? Who gets the dub?
Both of you were very eloquent. And I think that you both expounded on very good points about this topic, the subject. I would say,
are you struggling to come to a conclusion, brother?
No, it's a time. I think Chris, you might have been a little more eloquent, but I think Neil also, you could see from his experience. There was that authenticity. So I'm going to give it to both of you. Okay.
He copped out.
All right. No. Okay. I'm going to give it to Neil. I'll give it to Neil.
No,
he had
a summary. He had summary points. He had bullet points.
Yeah. He had bullet points. Yeah. But
I'm glad you landed somewhere, brother.
Chris signs my paychecks. So.
Yeah, Neil, he is not a great judge, man. I don't think he's got the judging capacity very well, does he?
I don't think I am either. I'll just say it. All right, but I do think
everybody's great, John. Everybody's great. You all win.
Yeah.
Congratulations, Neil. I'm proud of you, brother.
Everybody gets a ribbon.
You got
Okay.
win number one,
All right.
even though you gave me way too much ribbing today. Listen,
All right.
let's keep on figuring this stuff out together, elderly folks, and we got the month in review next week. So we will see you with Mr. Kyle King coming to join us. I'm excited to see him back doing a review of this month's shows. So until then, take care and stay well.